yeah, let's start with the functions. All right. So I feel like I should give a little disclaimer. At this point, like there is some stuff that like I'm still learning with this plugin. And because there's so many updates all the time, it's just consistently in development. There are things that are changing. So I'm sure there are things that I'm not going to cover, or I may get wrong with the more advanced stuff. But yeah, I like that we've been able to go through these things together and like debug it. So hopefully if that comes up, then we can do so again. Okay, the first function I'm going to cover here is the contains function. And this works perhaps just, this is a nice way to do it. I think this might be helpful, having a drawing panel. So the contains function works like this. Can you guys see the drawing, right? Okay.
Yes.
So I'm just going to use just C for shorthand in this drawing. So if you ask whether you apply the contains function to an object, to some object, and you ask whether it contains something, okay, and it returns true if that object contains that thing. So for example, you can ask if a string, that's me writing out yes as a string. You can ask if a string contains a certain substring. So does the word yes contain the letter E? That's going to be true. You can ask if does the word no contain that same letter, and that's going to return false. Okay, so that would not satisfy the where block, and so that string would not be returned as part of the result. You can also ask if a list contains like an element, a value in that list, and it's going to return true or false. So for example, does the list 1, 2, 3 contain the value 2, for example? That's going to be true. If you ask whether it contains 4, then that's going to be false. Okay. So let's see what we can do with that. We can say make a list from, or just make a list of all nodes where the file name, so we're querying a string in this example, the file name. Does the file name contain the prefix or the suffix I use to indicate a daily note, for example? So that's going to return a list of all my daily notes because they contain that, they have DN in the file name. You could ask, make a list from all my source nodes. Let me just find an example. So this is one of the authors we could ask for. So we can say, make a list of all the source nodes where the author's list contains this author. Right, and so this, these are all of the notes that list Robert Lamb as one of the authors. Okay. I actually haven't tried this to ask if, so for those that like understand the terminology, I think the contains function has become vectorized in one of the latest updates. So if you apply the function to an array, it acts on each object in that array. So I wonder if this will work. Okay, no, that doesn't work. So even though the authors field does contain the substring lam, when you query a list using the contains function, it only returns true if that exact test or object is in the list. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Ben, if some questions do come through, I just saw a notification. I haven't read the actual thing though. I think because it's less structured, you can ask the question if needed.
Yeah, I think this is relevant. Is there a way to use contains to select all nodes for which the node title contains a date?
Yes. I don't think I actually put that in the slides because regular expressions are a whole thing. But for those familiar with regular expressions, you can use the regex match function. I just want to make sure of the argument order here. So I'm just referring to the documents. Yeah, you can use regex match. So, but again, I don't think regex match can be fed a field. It can only operate. No, I'm lying to you. It totally can. So make a list where the file name contains and then the regular expression in quotes, other way around. Okay, so the regular expression in quotes, in this case, we would have what, like 4 digits, and it has to match it exactly. So followed by 2 digits in the format that I use, and the N. Oh, these are only source notes, that's why. Okay, that should work. And can even take that out. Okay, so it has to match the entire file name, it seems. Has that answered your question? I can go more in depth on the regular expression, but it has to match the entire string for which you're querying. It can't just match a substring of that.
Not really, well, but could you do it with can you OR those together so you could get weekly notes and daily notes and monthly notes?
To say like,
I'm thinking of Liam's calendar plugin that generates the weekly notes with a W in the title.
So
the weekly note has
year,
a different,
the day,
yeah,
and then a W like that.
I think that's how it is. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't think I have any weekly notes,
okay.
but
yeah,
but yeah, I mean,
that would work.
Should just work. Yeah.
Yep. That's cool.
Perhaps. Oh, I mean, you can do where file.day. Yeah. So that totally works. Because if file.day returns null, then the where condition fails, and so it won't return a note that doesn't have a date in its file. Okay, nice.
Okay. That's probably the cleanest way.
Yeah.
But the regular expression that you provided, so the regex does have to match the title completely, but you can shape your regex such that you can query for a substring, just for completeness sake, right? So if you wanted to write a regex, you would, like, in front of a \d, and in the end you would put something like +, if I recall. So this is, I'm just speaking off the top of my head because
Yes.
Implementations are different in different programming languages, but this is probably it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That works as well. Didn't think of that. Yes.
I have another contains question.
Uh-huh.
You query for a file that contains a tag in the body of the text, not in the metadata. At the top.
So at the moment, there is no like file.content property, but for that question specifically, you can use the file.tags property, which detects tags in the body or the metadata.
Nice.
I put a feature request for file.content. I think it'd be a bit slow though. Cool. I can keep going to the next. The Zoom thing is in the way. I can't get the slides. Oh, these are the slides with an iframe. All right, I'm going to move to length then. So contains works on substrings when you're querying a single string, and it only works on whole values when you query a list. Okay. I have shown an example of the length function. Another case you can do, so make a list where the length of the file name is at least like 10 or say like 20 characters long. Yeah, so you only see my longer notes. Yeah. I'm sure you could do some other cool stuff with that. So I mean, the one I showed is where the length of the file.tags property is equal to 0. So find your untagged notes. Yeah, at this point, if anyone knows a cool example, then please feel free to share, because there's just so much possibility with these functions. So you can also return the sum of numbers in a list. So for example, if you asked for sum of the values in the list 1, 2, 3, and just get back 6. And so I was trying to think of an example that applies to my vault. I don't rarely use lists of numbers in my metadata, but say, for example, you had a note. If you had a note with like the amount of time that you spend studying a certain subject, and each time you studied it, you added an item to the list saying how long you spent studying. So if you spent like 15 minutes and like 20, for example, and so on, then you could make a list where the studied field exists, and make a list of the sum of studied. Some debugging help.
Well,
Would be the spacing maybe on indent? Yeah.
I think maybe you have to provide another field that is not an aggregated field.
My YAML is
in the
invalid.
table field. Oh, fair enough.
Sorry, I do just want to turn this back on. Okay, yeah. So even if you put 2 spaces on the first one, if you just hit enter, it puts a tab instead.
No.
Okay. Yeah, it's got me a few times. Yeah, and so that works there.
It's one problem I'm trying to solve for us, and I don't know if the sum function would do this if it has access to it, but I'd love to be able to count the number of block embeds, number of times a block has been embedded, and show those counts. Ideally in the page the way that Rome does it, but right now we can't even see block embed in preview mode. You can only see it in embed mode, in edit mode. But is there a way that the Dataview can get access to any of those?
So you want to make a sum of perhaps like nothing that works would come to mind. What I'm going to suggest is like more like a pseudocode kind of thing. If someone knows of a way that would work, please go first.
Does a block embed count as a link as well?
That's a good question.
Say that again, Ben. I missed that.
Does a block embed count as a link as well?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Because if so, then you could query for the link. But well, it would be too general then.
Make a list of all the links leaving the studied note. Whoa. Why does it do that? That's strange.
All right, you don't have to spend much on it. I was just curious if anyone else has wrestled with that.
Well, so I saw yesterday on the forum someone put a regular expression to detect block embeds.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes, but just in general, not for Dataview specifically. So if you had access to like the node content, you could. I think I put the arguments in the wrong order, but you could like query for. Yeah. So like find the thing and then find the hashtag and that, and then maybe find the length of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it's currently possible. I wonder what this has done, because it seems to have like just returned everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do they also show up in the backlinks of the studied node?
I usually have the backlinks plugin.
Or you just open the graph.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, so the results you're getting on the top file are just being gotten from Dataview somehow.
I think this is every node. But weirdly, no, never mind. I'm not sure what's going on.
I think if we can solve that problem of being able to show block embed count and show it in live mode, not just in edit mode, I think we'd probably get a lot more converts from Rome.
Mm-hmm.
I did see Blacksmith Guru was talking about an inline query, so you could have like this and return whatever. Yeah. Mm. So that could be part of it. Yeah.
It's probably going to be harder to really get something that is rendered in edit mode, because I feel like this is a distinction by design made in Obsidian.
Yeah.
But what would be really awesome is to have access to the node content in Dataview.
For sure. Yeah, because you could do everything we're talking about here if you had that.
Yeah, I would. Okay, so now we can write in the GitHub issue that there's so much request for it.
You can post the participant count as our argument. Okay, so that's some. So I just stayed quite general. We can actually just have a look at all the functions. The constructors I don't really use personally. I haven't really seen many examples of them either, but perhaps with like vectorization, you could make some pretty complex stuff.
This is nice. This actually reminds me of a question I just had, because I was looking for a way to give a non-intrinsic ordering to, for instance, tags. Because so if you use like the sort clause, it sorts strings lexicographically and numbers by the number value, right? But what if you want to have some sort of arbitrary ordering? And all I was thinking about is that, like, I don't know, in databases you would do some sort of weird join or something to integers. But maybe this could allow us to define a mapping, right, from text to their order. What do you think?
I'm not sure. Do you want to like write out a query here?
I couldn't. I couldn't because I don't have enough experience with it yet, but it was a thought. Because my need would be to list all nodes with a specific tag, but order these by this arbitrary ordering that I have imposed on the tag, on the tags.
Order right. the list of
yes
links or the tags themselves?
The list.
Yeah, so I mean, we can have a look at like the different functions which then change the ordering of a list.
I'm wondering, just looking at that, at the notes in there, at the reference guide and Ben's question, I'm wondering if you could extract an object and then post-process it to achieve that, the question that came up earlier as well, of the kind of the two-step where you did where we extracted it and then manually pasted the results into the YAML header. If you could instead extract into an object and then process the object, might be a cleaner way to do that. And to achieve what Ben is talking about, at least looking at what I'm seeing here with the being able to extract it and then put it back out into a list and choose the ordering that you want to do with that list. So creating a, you know, an object that maps to the way he wants it structured.
So I think for the first example that you mentioned, where we were doing that intermediate step, perhaps this object could be useful, but I don't think there's a way for Ben's example to then append something to an object using like externally, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because you can extract, you can take from, but I don't think you can add to.
I would have to look into it. All right.
I mean, yeah, we could show some examples of each of these. Can sort the list, use the length, some. This was helpful. I forgot why I asked for this. Oh, so this all, any, and none function came up because I asked about like vectorizing regex match. So it is vectorized now. So it will check if each element in a list of values matches the regular expression. and then it returns a Boolean array, which you can then ask if all, any, or none of the values are true, just to aggregate it to one.
The extract object might also be a way to solve that file name problem that the questioner brought up earlier. And I wonder if you could extract and then only spit out the fields that you want and not spit out the file name and then tablize from there. I don't know if it would work. I'm just throwing out as a possibility.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, the play around with that. So I guess it's then presenting this object of like file, and the value is a list, and then another key author whose values are lists themselves.
Yeah, I was thinking if you extract and you create an object and the only thing you put into that object are the modified date or the authors or whatever, and not the title, and then you table that object. So the extract first, then the table of the object.
I'm not sure how that
Yeah,
looks.
I don't know.
Make a table of authors from that and then extract just the authors. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking first just do the extract into an object. So extract, your list and just pull out just the table, the fields. So
we do have to say though which object to extract from, and maybe like just this. It was introduced recently, but I think that more refers to the notes rather than
this specific note versus all notes. Okay, yeah, that won't work if you can't do it off of a query. Okay, scratch that.
So for Kat's question a little bit back, could you do table extract authors from this or something like this? No.
From?
So the object has to be the thing you are trying to extract, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you could be doing from everything, extract authors, for example. So empty quotes there.
Huh. Probably have to name it as something. Oh, don't often get long errors anymore. I'm not sure what to make of that.
I think it sort of works, but only so you're getting an undefined, probably because you have some nodes that don't have the authors tag.
Let me add. Hopefully all of my source nodes have authors. Yeah, maybe not.
Yeah, what about instead of the empty quotes, you put the tag? Oh yeah, too much.
Yeah, we need to be able to access the object that it's like working with.
I'm not quite clear about what an object actually is. So is it really anything returned from a query, or?
I don't think so. I think the object is just Dataview's representation of your YAML.
Okay.
So you could build another set of metadata, but I don't think it's returned by anything.
Yeah, fair enough. But that explains why I can't query and extract. Yeah, you would really need for the advanced use case, you would probably really need something like a for each or a nested where clauses, stuff like that.
So Ross, how often do you update your YAML to allow Dataview, like your complete tags and any values like the amount of time or the intensity? Is this part of your daily workflow that you're pretty consistently updating your YAML?
At first, when I started using Dataview, there was a what's the word? A big investment to go and add the relevant metadata to everything. But once it's there, you just need to maintain it at least, yeah. And with the citations plugin, the way I construct all my source notes, you can give it a template which fills in the YAML for me based on the reference.
Yeah, I was thinking less of the static YAML like that and more of the dynamic stuff where you're using fields like complete and intensity, stuff that changes, that requires your maintenance to go in and do that. I'm just wondering how often you forget to do that and your queries are not up to date, so to speak, and any tips that you would offer for how you've overcome that.
Well, it's something that I'm still trying to overcome. One thing I still can't figure out is, so with YAML, you can have like a variable, but I still don't know how to do that. So if like someone knows how to do that, then please share, because then you could just update the variable, but then use that in different places within the YAML, but then ideally also in the content of the notes. So for example, for my assignments, I have like a due date field. And then often for like my I'm done cards, the sprint stuff I showed you yesterday, you can add a due field, but then I'm literally just retyping the date, which, I mean, inefficient, and also if it changes, I have to do it in different places. Yeah, so ideally I would just be able to do something like that, but I can't figure it out. But yes, so there's a limitation. You make a good point that you do have to go and maintain the metadata.
I mean, a weak point that would help in practice a bit is probably the use of templates, as you already illustrated. But also like for templates for new nodes or text expander templates, because you would have less hassle of even including it in the first place, and you wouldn't run into like typos or something, and you would always have the same format. And I think having the format, the specs change over time is a problem you'll have in any system probably.
Yeah, like that birthday query used to work, but now you have to like wrap the date in the date. Yeah.
Hey Ross, this is Dean.
Hey Dean.
Hey, are you using Dataview to like dynamically generate your maps of content?
Yes. I use this template to do just that. Oh, I went and changed around the template. Give me a sec. So I've got a template called Dataview MOC, and you just put it in it actually doesn't even need the the template anymore, because you have access to this dot. So for example, in my so I use the tag field, so anything in the field of yoga, to tag my notes on yoga, and then inserting that template here. It fills in all of those details for me, except I just have to say for that tag, and then it so there's the first copy that was already there, and then here's the second one. Yeah, So it's a very easy way to insert a more of an index than a map of content. But the nice advantage is that it doesn't then clutter up your graph view because these links aren't actual links.
And a really cool thing about that is you could also sort that by most recently modified instead of alpha. So you could have a dynamic index that would really be dynamic, that it's really telling you, here's the most recent thing.
Yeah, that's one of the things I didn't like about maps of content. It just seemed like a lot of work to maintain it. So this makes it a lot easier.
The only flip side of that, Dean, and I totally agree with you, the only flip side is that the manual effort of maintaining it, there's sort of a, an intimacy that you get with your notes when you do it manually, that, depending on how much you use your note base for learning versus, retrieving what you put in, there's something to the manual effort. Even though it is a pain, it does force you to engage a bit more with your notes. So
yeah,
but I totally agree with you that the flip side is the convenience of what Ross is showing here is pretty superb.
No, I get you, Anthony. I'm new to this, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to organize and manage this.
There's no best way. There's your way that works for you, and it will tweak over time. And I think I saw something that Ben put in the notes, or somebody put in the notes, that yet another something that will just let you play with something for hours on end versus actually getting what you want to get done.
Right, go further down the rabbit hole.
Totally. I mean, you can have both, though, because you can have your just alphabetical index or sorted however you want, but then still the cultivated map of content on top of that.
True. Right. That's a good point.
Yeah, I didn't even think to sorted, so that's cool as well. Yeah. And you can also
change the I think you probably showed this before and I forget, but can you change the table header names so it doesn't show M time to actually put it in a legit header?
So you can
okay, cool.
Yeah, so as modified, and I think
nice.
if you use quotes, you can have
cool
spaces. And so you can have an index of outgoing links. Oh, sorry. So that's an incoming thing of things tagged with that, and then you can easily just have like all the outgoing links in that page. I wonder if this will work, or if you'd need a template. Let me put this somewhere else. But then there's no outgoing links. Let me just put like 1 or 2. I guess not. So you would have to use a template to put that in there. It's still not working because I have triple. Yeah. So you can also just make an index of outgoing links from a node. Yeah.
So maybe another thought, more of a philosophical thought about the concern Dean had about manual curation or generating is, I think there you really have to think about why you're keeping these nodes in the first place. And if you want to keep information and do some sort of a knowledge base, then that is fine. But for instance, if you're trying to organize your thoughts and stuff, then maybe Anthony has a point that the manual curation really helps. And my example is that I deliberately chose not to do this for my thesis, because I would have super big MOCs and whatever with all the links, but it wouldn't be in my head and I wouldn't understand it. And when I would start to write, I still wouldn't still wouldn't grasp it, you know. In any case, with that remark, I think I will have to leave you because I have to go someplace.
We have got an hour of time.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it, and I mean, we didn't force anyone to stay, right? I think everybody who's here at this point is either asleep or enjoying his time.
Yeah, the only downside is I had to get up at 6:30 a.m. on a Saturday, but it was well worth it. Thank you for putting in the time here.
Awesome. Awesome. Thanks for being here.
So cool to hear. Thanks.
Okay,
And thank you to Ben for moderating.
Yeah, I'm gonna reclaim the host role, Ben. So
Yeah.
you can go.
And I just wanted, just before, real quick, before Ben leaves, I just wanted to just throw out for everyone who's still here. I think this is terrific, Ben. Thank you for the idea of doing this, and Ross and Argentina for pulling this together. I think this is superb. This has been terrific, and I look forward to future ones. And I'm sure the community will continue to grow as we do this. So before you drop in, thank you for the idea, for pulling this together, and for pushing this through. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, man, I feel the same. All right. I go then. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
See you next time.
And
Cheers.
Ross, is there anything else you want to cover?
I mean, I've definitely covered everything I intended to originally. Yeah, and I'm sure we could play around with this a bit more, but I think it's a good place to finish off here.
Okay, then in that case, I would ask just one final round of questions, if there are any. Is there anything that you guys would like, maybe another example or something that maybe needs a bit more explanation? Please either write me on the chat or unmute yourselves and let us know.
Is there a way to contribute to this plugin?
To the plugin,
Either to the author, or to make feature requests, or to report bugs? What's been your experience with that?
Let me show you over here. Yeah. So I'm not sure of your experience with GitHub. Are you familiar with?
I am, but I meant in general. Just for people who want to get more involved, either report an issue, make a request, or make a contribution to the developer. How should they go about doing that?
Awesome. Yes, so on the GitHub page over here, I'll add a link to it as well. If you don't want to look at the code, then you can sponsor by clicking this button over here. You can star it. I'm not sure if there's any actual value to that. If you do want to play around with the code, you can fork the repository over here. I won't go into detail on that, but there's lots of good videos and documentation out there. If you want to submit a feature request or ask a question or report a bug, then the issues tab is where you can do that over here. You would just create a new issue, give a descriptive title. If you want to post a feature request, just put that there. And then the comment box supports Markdown, so you can do some cool stuff there. Yeah. Also, I'm listed as a contributor, not because I touched the code, but because I helped update the docs. If that's something you want to do as well, you can just fork the documentation and update that too. Because I do think some of it isn't the easiest for beginners to just have a click here. And also, Blacksmith Guru's on Discord, so you can drop him a message. He's quite helpful.
Very nice. Okay, I think there are no further questions, at least none on the chat. I think we can close it here. I would just ask again one final thanks to Ross for the very high bar that he set for the community talks. The next talks are gonna have a really high bar to meet. Good. So then one last clap. You can either react or just if you have your video on, then clap virtually as well. And yeah, see you next time.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Let me just shout out your talk here, Argentum. So the talk is planned, and if you want to let Argentum know when you can make the talk, you can find the link over here, which takes you to this website where you can choose from the available times, and then you can say, I can make it at this time or not. Yeah, it's really helpful. Okay, cool. Let us finish there. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. I really appreciate everyone taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ross.
Cool, cool.
Bye.